Thank you all again for joining us for Cooking with Beyond an Impossible Meat. I am so excited to introduce Ramin Ganeshram, who is an award-winning journalist, food historian, and professional chef, as well as the co-author of The Art of the Perfect Sauce. Her work has notably been featured in The Guardian, NPR, Sever, Epicurious, and Bon Appetit. She lives in Connecticut with her family. Thank you so much for joining us. Hi, Mom. Thanks for joining us as well. As we learn how to cook with Ramin, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and let her take it away.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you and to cook this recipe. I think, so what I really want to tell you about this recipe is, as I'm going along, you're going to see that it's really adaptable. I'm going to tell you the places where it's adaptable for your own, taste and style of cooking. And that's true of all the recipes in the book. So we're going to start with poblano peppers. I have most of them cut, but I didn't cut these two because I wanted to show you all both how to cut and seed these peppers, and also the two different ways that you could prepare these for stuffing. So this is, the raw cleaned pepper. We're going to cut it. This one is blistered a little bit. I happen to like the taste of that fire roasted, heat blistered pepper. When you stuff them and bake them, you don't necessarily get this, kind of charring of the skin, because of course they're in a tray together and they somewhat steam. You can do this in two ways if you like this sort of taste. You can brush it lightly or spray it lightly with oil, put it on a baking tray and put it under the broiler for about a minute or two at the most. Or if you are not faint of heart and you have a gas stove or a charcoal grill, you could put it right up against the flame or on a grill, right on the grill. And it's very quick. It's maybe 15, 20 seconds per side at the most, and it will blister. I didn't do this one too much, but just enough. Hopefully you can see that blistering and browning. So to slice these for this recipe, you want to do it in a way that the pepper is the widest, right? You're going to cut it in half. You're going to start at the base end and go all the way to the stem. And just kind of slice right through. So you see you have the kind of widest base for your stuffing. And then you're going to cut out the seed bed. So the poblano pepper, I'm sure you all are very well familiar with it, being in California, and you have your amazing produce. When I visit my friend in the Bay Area, I think I gain 10 pounds every time I come to California because of all the wonderful things that you have year round. But those of you who aren't familiar with this and kind of other peppers, you just kind of scrape out the seed beds. Poblanos are slightly spicy. They do have a little bit of a kick. Like any hot pepper, it really depends on the actual pepper itself. Some, I'm sure you've had this experience with jalapenos. Some are not particularly hot at all, and some are extremely hot. I say this to say to you, this one is sweet and slightly hot, but it is hot enough that the seeds and the seed beds can create a little sting, on your fingers if you touch your eyes. So the solution for that is to have a little bit of white vinegar with you when you're cooking, maybe in a bowl with a paper towel, dipped into it. And if you get, you touch the pepper, you can wipe your hands with the paper towel soaked in white vinegar. You could also wipe your surfaces, such as your countertop and your cutting boards, to really get that volatile oil of the pepper. So you see, this is what the pepper is going to look like. That's the one that's a little bit blistered. We're going to set that aside, and then we're going to make the stuffing. So we're going to start with just about a tablespoon, maybe a little less of, I'm using safflower oil. You can use any oil you like that has a high smoke point. I suggest it should be a flavorless oil. So not olive oil necessarily. I mean, unless you really love that taste, but there's enough flavors in here that, you kind of don't want that competition. And this is about a small onion. I'm just going to add that in. I don't know if you can see the pan there. We're just going to fry this till they're translucent. This is going to take a while, maybe 5 or 6 minutes, at which point we're going to put in garlic. So while we're waiting for this, I'm going to tell you about some of the other ingredients. So this is about a little shy of a cup of rice. I think the actual recipe calls for a half a cup. Give me any rice you want, except for a rice that is particularly sticky, right? So it can be a short grain rice if you prefer that versus a long grain rice, but you don't want it to be sticky. It's cooked rice, so you could use brown rice as well. This is the adaptability part. You could use quinoa if you prefer quinoa, for example. You could use couscous if you like that. Doesn't necessarily have to be rice. That's what I preferred, and that's how I wrote the recipe. But you can pretty much use any grain that's already cooked that you like for this recipe. Wild rice would be amazing, for example, or a mixed rice blend would be really nice. The other ingredients are black beans. I tend to like beans that are not canned. And I'll tell you the trick that I use to be able to have dry reconstituted beans whenever I want. What I do is I soak them first, and beans, all beans pretty much, it's a ratio of 3 parts water to 1 part bean. So 1 cup of beans, 3 cups of water, and you soak it generally overnight, and then you bring it to a parboil. You drain it, then add fresh amount, same ratio of water to bean. And then you bring it to a boil till what I do is till it's about 3/4 done. The cooking time will depend on the bean. Then I drain them and I put them in Ziploc bags, zip top bags, flat. They could be small bags, they could be large bags, depending on how many beans you consume. And then I freeze them flat in the freezer. So this lets me have that nicely reconstituted dry bean as quickly as having canned beans. And I do it 3/4 of the way through so the bean can continue to cook in whatever the preparation is and absorb the flavor versus turning into mush. So that's just a little tip, a little trick that I use. Why do I use dry beans? Why do I prefer dry beans? Well, the mushiness factor is less. And I just feel like they taste better. That could be in my head. I don't know, but that's how I feel. So now we're going to add garlic. I like a lot of garlic, so this is 4 cloves of garlic. You can use more or less. And remember that garlic cooks really quickly, and you have to be careful. So you don't want it to scorch. So tonight, the plant-based meat that I'm using is Impossible. Those of you who have used this know that the different plant-based meats are available in different meats are available in different areas. So in California, I know that you can get the Impossible product pretty easily. I think you can also get the Beyond product equally easily. So here on the East Coast, we tend to get more Beyond than Impossible. There's only a couple of stores that have the Impossible, but you can also use crumbles. So the Beyond family of products also has these crumbles, and some of them are quite nice. There's one that Beyond makes that's called spicy, and that's particularly good for this recipe. So you're gonna cook this just like you would ground meat, ground beef. You're gonna break it up just like you would with your animal-based meat product. A couple of tips around this product, and a lot of the tips and tricks and how-tos and kind of what to do and what not to do are in the book. But I will tell you that this product has to be completely defrosted, and the same thing is true of the Beyond meat product as well. It has to be, the kind of raw meat product has to be completely defrosted before you start to use it. And this is a departure from animal-based ground meat, right? I mean, all of us have done this where we have taken ground beef or ground turkey from a frozen state and put it in a pan. Not supposed to do it, but we do it and kind of scrape it off as it cooks. You can't do that with this product. It will completely break down. And I mention this because other products like the crumbles that I mentioned, you do cook it from frozen. It's meant to be cooked from a frozen condition, but the raw meat product is not. I would also recommend to you that while you can cook the burgers from a completely frozen condition, it is better if you don't. It's better if you actually defrost it. How do you defrost it? In the refrigerator, just like you would any meat, animal-based meat from a frozen condition, you defrost it in the refrigerator. So you see this is, starting to brown. I'm using this, tabletop stove burner so that I don't have to have my back to you while this cooks, but it is taking a little longer than the heavy duty BTU stove. So if anybody has any questions for me while we're waiting for this to brown, I'm happy to answer it.
Yeah, feel free at any time to unmute yourself and ask Ramin any questions you might have. So how did you start getting cooking with non-animal meat products?
So the real reason is because of family members and close friends who, over time went from becoming vegetarian to vegan. And, I am a trained chef. I've written 10 books, 8 are cookbooks, and they were always coming to me to say, how can I make this taste like meat or like the real thing, right? And I'll be honest with you, my first response to people is, don't try. Before these products, I always said, don't try. Like, there's a world of amazing vegan cuisine that is just naturally vegan. Eat that, right? But we like to eat what we're accustomed to, and in this country, we like our ground beef, and it's true across the world as well. There's so many thousands of ground meat recipes that are amazing, but it really was to serve the need of people close to me who wanted that experience, and it wasn't until these products came out was I really able to reproduce things that really were as close, if not better, than the original. There's some recipes in the book that I have to tell you are better using these products. So I'll give you an example. There's a recipe in the book for kebabs 5 different ways. And one of the kebab recipes is for Persian ground meat kebabs, kebab kubide. My mother was Persian, right? So this is a lamb and beef recipe. Well, actually, I haven't eaten red meat in 25 years. So I would make it with ground turkey. Truthfully, it's fine, but it's not as good. When I started making it with these products, it actually tasted closer to, really close to the real thing, to the point where that's our preference now. We don't make it with the ground turkey. We make it with these products instead. So, okay, so you see that it's hopefully you guys can see this in here, right? It's cooked through. It's not necessarily browned, but that's okay because this is going back in the oven. Again, other preparations, you want it to be really properly browned. So what we're going to add is, I always like to give people this tip. You want to add your spices to any preparation with meat. This is black pepper, about a teaspoon. This is about a teaspoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of coriander. And again, you can adapt it if you're going to put about, I like a lot of salt. So you put as much as you think is suitable for you, but about a teaspoon in general. I always tell people, and this is true across the board for cooking, you want to add your spices while the preparation is dry because you want the spices to actually have dry heat applied to them, to be toasted, to release their flavor and to release their aroma. There's a big difference between throwing powdered spices into a broth or a stock or a water-based preparation or allowing it to toast and be hot. Like, I can smell these spices already. So the next thing I'm going to add here, I'm going to lower the heat. Now, normally the recipe in the book calls for a can, one of those little cans of chopped jalapenos, or you could use hatch chilies. I didn't happen to have those. So this is actually a taco skillet sauce from a major brand that I happen to like. It's Frontera. My point is, you can use any one you want. You can do anything you like here. You can adapt it. Maybe you have a pepper sauce that you really love. Maybe you want to put tomatoes in here, chopped tomatoes. It's really essentially what gives you the flavor that you want, because these products are pretty forgiving and adaptable. And because they do taste like meat, but not as overpowering as meat is, it allows you to really experiment with the flavors you want for something that cooks pretty quickly. So now we're going to add the rice. And again, this is about 3/4 of a cup. I like to add rice to dishes. Sorry, those are the spices actually making me cough a little bit. I like to add rice to dishes while the rice is cooked and cold. For those of you who make fried rice, or if you like to make fried rice, if you don't know, that's the tip for fried rice. It has to be cooked and completely cold, having sat in the refrigerator. That's how fried rice dishes are made. So now the black beans are going to go in. Mix that up. So now, you know, I didn't prepare any cut tomato or chopped tomato, but on a day like this, I might look at it and go, yeah, I want to put tomato in there, and it would be equally as good, maybe even better. And these are the sort of toasted or fire roasted corn. So another thing I like to do, you can buy frozen, you know, grilled corn, fire roasted corn. Trader Joe's sells it in bags. A lot of, you know, a lot of packaged food companies make this product. I have to tell you that when it comes to using corn in a recipe, I really don't like to use frozen or canned product if it's going to be cooked twice, like this is going to be cooked twice, because it releases too much water and it kind of breaks down too much. And so this is corn that I sliced off the cob and, you know, quickly toasted in a dry frying pan in order to get that nice, you know, charred grilled taste. So now I'm just looking for a spoon. Okay. So the stuffing part is super easy. So let me just get this here. So if you use 4 whole poblanos, then you're going to get a dish that serves, you know, 4 to 6 people, depending on how big of an eater you are. This is kind of too big of a spoon. You actually want to use probably a tablespoon. So you want to, you know, just really kind of fill it nicely. You want it to be rounded. I don't know if you can all see that, how it's a little bit mounded on top. And you're just going to continue to fill each one. Use it, don't do what I'm doing, use the tablespoon. It's going to be a lot easier for you if you do that. So I want to tell you something about the vegan cheese, if you choose to put vegan cheese on top. And depending on the cheese product, you may or might not have to put it halfway through the cooking or right at the beginning. So if this was an animal cheese, and again, you could use animal cheese if you wanted to. I mean, there's nothing to stop you from doing it. It doesn't necessarily have to be entirely vegan. But, you know, the truth of the matter is, really, I have, in this year, this is the year that I have found that vegan cheeses have absolutely started to meet the standard of even of the way that these plant-based meats really mimic the real thing. The one thing is that in some cases, they do take a bit of time to melt. So the cheese I'm going to use tonight is from So Delicious, relatively newcomer to the vegan cheese market. This, you probably know this brand for their coconut milk, non-dairy ice creams. They have yogurts. And now they're making these cheeses that I have to tell you are actually kind of incredible. They do these cheddar slices that I have made grilled cheese sandwiches from, full-on grilled cheese sandwiches that you would not know was not, deli animal-based cheese. It melts so well. However, it takes a long time to melt. So when it finally melts, it does a great job, but it takes a long time. So this is that product. This is their sort of Mexican style vegan cheese blend. So I'm going to put it on top from the beginning. And again, as little, and you can see it, or I'll hold it up for you to see. Hopefully you can get a good look at it. I mean, it really looks very much, if not identical, to the plant-based to me. So you put, I happen to like cheese, so I'm going to put a lot. But, and the thing about this product, and I'll say this is also true of the Impossible product, and this is what I think is the most important, it smells like the animal-based product. This smells like cheese. This smells like meat. That's not always the case, when you talk about these products. So this is going to go in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. Had I thought about it, I should have done the usual magic of television and had some ready. But I figured we could chat a little bit while that was cooking. I'll just fill these for later. So it is after 9:00 p.m. here on the East Coast. But the great thing about this, doing this with you all, is that this is going to be dinner tomorrow, and my daughter's a vegan. So, it worked out really well. So thank you for that. You've saved me from having to cook tomorrow night. So this is really a win for everybody type of situations. So that's the recipe. I'll put these in another container later, and we're just going to wait for it to cook. So if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer any concerns, any
I had a couple
adaptations
questions.
you want to talk about.
Yeah, I
Gary,
had a
go
couple
for it.
questions. Okay, first of all, what is the, thank you for doing this, first of all, but
My pleasure.
what is the shelf life different for the Impossible meats? I mean, does it keep as long in the freezer as a regular meat would, or is it spoiled?
It does,
as quickly,
probably. Yeah, it absolutely does. Probably even a little longer because it is plant-based. And just like regular meat, what you do not want to do is defrost it and freeze it and defrost it and freeze it. There's a fairly high fat content, just like in animal meats, and that's when rancidity can happen, right? So you don't want to do that, but it has an incredibly long shelf life. In fact, because some of these things are hard to get, depending where you are, I'll often really buy a lot in bulk when I find the one that I like, and keep it in the freezer for quite a long time.
Oh, okay. And I had another question, if I could. We were sent this by PETA, sent a bunch of different variety packs of things, and this is neat, and it's a kind of a powder, and you're supposed to cook it in oil to constitute. Have you ever tried one of these? Does it work? I had a terrible time with it. It didn't congeal.
Yeah, there's a European company called Delicieux that does one with chicken. I will say that I don't feel that they've come up to the level of these products. And I think they eventually will. I think they'll eventually, the science will catch up. I think working with these products and watching the evolution over time, I think that don't be surprised if these companies start to come up with whole muscle, like cuts of plant-based meat that mimic animal, muscle and animal protein. But yes, I have to agree with you. The ones that you have to kind of mix with oil and get to congeal, they're tricky. They can be tricky. And the problem with it is that they react the way flours react, right? So when you're baking, depending on your atmosphere, is it too humid? Is it too dry? Are you at an altitude? Are you below sea level? That affects baking, right? Affects the moisture in a flour. So so people don't realize anything powdered, that's going to happen. So that's
Makes
going to potentially, make a difference.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Good. Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So I'm curious if you've noticed much of a change in the quality of the products you've been working with as they continue to expand. These companies have gotten so much bigger just in the past even year, whether it's gotten a lot better or whether it's started out really good.
I have to say that I do think that they've gotten better. I'll tell you that for a really long time out here, the Beyond product was the only product. And then the Impossible came on the market. And I mean, and you saw it, it looks like ground beef, right? Whereas the Beyond product, it's kind of pinkish. It's not really, it kind of has the same color as Spam, right? Not that there's anything wrong with Spam. I'm not knocking Spam, but it has that kind of color, that pale pink versus that deep red. So even in the way it looks, even the way it smells raw, and that's where I've seen the biggest difference, I should say. The way it smells when it's raw, all of these products, when they're cooked, they smell very meaty, they smell like meat. When they're raw is when you really see the difference in the quality in the last even year, that they smell like meat, which is kind of remarkable. But that's a result of what's called heme, right? A plant-based hemoglobin, that compound in all blood that creates the color and that kind of metallic smell that blood has. Well, they are synthesizing it from various plants, and that's why it now smells like the real thing.
So remarkable what they're doing with food science these days.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. A couple of things I like to tell people about these products is, I like to be really candid and say these are processed foods, right? They're highly processed. So in the same way that you may not eat a lot of packaged or processed food, many people don't, right? Many people want to have a cleaner, more whole foods based diet, which I completely understand and I am personally in favor of. This is a moderation type product, right? Because there's a high fat content and it is highly processed. Some of them have soy, right? I can't remember which has soy and which doesn't, but some of them are soy based. Some people don't want to consume soy. So just like anything you would eat, I mean, these are great products for substituting for meat, for getting going on a vegan diet, for having that taste when you really want it and kind of keeping you on track so you don't fall off the wagon if you're pursuing a vegan lifestyle. But just like with everything, you have to really make value judgments for your own diet and your own life of how much or how often you're going to consume it.
That's a great reminder. Thank you.
I'm
always curious when I talk to cookbook authors about the testing, the recipe testing process, and how sick their family gets of eating the same things over and over. Or maybe they don't. Maybe that's not a problem because it's all amazing. I don't know if anybody else is ever curious about that, but I am always curious about it and would love to hear your experience.
No, they totally get sick of it. And especially if I'm doing a single subject cookbook. This was a good one because even though it was a single subject, single product, the recipes are international, so they didn't get bored really. But I did a cookbook entirely on coconut. And even though it was appetizers to desserts and everything in between, coconut's a very powerful taste, right? And we're all coconut lovers. And by the end of that book, not even I wanted to see a coconut. But what I try to do is I try to rope in all of my friends into testing and tasting as well. And that helps because then you can kind of get things out of the getting. So I've trained all my friends to be really critical eaters of things that I'm testing. I just don't tell me, oh yeah, it's good. That's not helpful. Tell me, it doesn't have enough salt, or I wish the texture was different. And, it's good. I wouldn't eat it all the time. That's what I want to hear, So I train them to to oblige in that way. So
I
I'm
don't have
interested to
the
know-
cookbook, so can you review or just tell me about some of the recipes that are in the cookbook?
Yeah, definitely. I think I have, yeah. So let me just show you. I'll show you some of the pictures. So this is the book.
Uh-huh.
And what I did was I organized the book by world region,
Mhm.
focusing on recipes that, based on their region, use ground meat. They do, right? So kebabs are a really good example. So there's a whole section on Middle Eastern food and kebabs. There are dumpling recipes, tacos, enchilada dip, that's Latino and Caribbean flavors. There's what I call all American favorites, right? So chili, beef and barley soup, meatballs 5 ways, Salisbury steak. So I'll show you that one. I did that one because I just have this fond childhood memory of, this is so bad, Swanson's TV dinners as a treat. And they had Salisbury steak. I don't know if you remember that. So they did, the picture doesn't quite look like how I, did it, but it's, so that's just an example. The shepherd's pie recipe, I'm told people really love. And that's quite a nice recipe. You can see it on the top there, top corner. But I'll tell you my favorite recipe from this book. And it's because my father was Caribbean, my father was from Trinidad and Tobago, and people who know Jamaican beef patties. So everyone in the United States calls them Jamaican beef patties, but they're just patties. That's, they're all over the Caribbean. They come from English pasties, Cornish pasties. That's what it comes from. And this recipe using, the plant-based, you would not know. And it is so amazing. It's so great because, again, I have so many friends and family who love patties, right? But they're not going to eat meat. And this is a way to do it. So it really does span the whole world, from the United States to South Asia, to East Asia, to the Middle East, to the Caribbean, to the Latinx nations, the Far East. So but nothing too crazy, right? It's all things that we've all had in restaurants, that or could be frozen or packaged food. So they're familiar. Exotic familiar, I guess, is the way to put it.
What are the environmental impacts of using the plant-based product?
So the environmental impacts are less than, animal-based foods, right? Particularly livestock rearing and slaughter uses a lot of water. It uses a lot of land for grazing and so on. So it is a lot less, dramatically less. I think the statistic is 90% less water is used to grow the ingredients for plant-based meat substitutes than for rearing meat. So that's really quite a remarkable number, especially if you think about areas that suffer from drought and so on. But, on some level, you are talking about genetically modified foods. There's no guarantee that the soy that's used in some of these products, the wheat, if there is wheat, I think actually none of them have wheat anymore, is not genetically modified. And it is, it is a kind of a complex scientific process to isolate the proteins to create this product.
Yeah, I was wondering about the whole process of creating the product. You grow the plant, and what are the plants that are used in making the product?
Yeah, so the common ingredients, as I said, soy is one, pea protein isolate from beans, usually peas. Mushroom isolates from mushroom is often used, and that's where you're getting that meatiness of the texture. Beet beets are used for the red coloring, for the dye. Sometimes tapioca starch. Tapioca is actually from cassava or yucca or cassava, same thing. You know, it's a tropical tuber. Potato starch is often used. A lot of the starches that you might be familiar with in gluten-free baking is what you'll find in these products as well. And then of course they're put together in some kind of super science Star Trek kind of way that mere mortals don't understand to come out like this. So I hope
Hi.
that helped.
I just wanted to say thank you. We're enjoying your cookbook very much. Purchased
Thank
through the
you.
book mine, of course. We've tried the sloppy joe and the shepherd pie. So we're going to continue. And I like how your cookbook's set up with the different regions. So you have Americana and the Asian. We like cooking a lot of Asian. So it's a great cookbook and my family's enjoying it. Just wanted to give you a
Oh,
positive.
thank you.
So
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'd be interested to know, are you finding that it's quicker to put meals together with this product? You know, I find it's faster than cooking with animal products, but I never know if I'm right in these assessments because I am a trained chef. So I kind of am fast, right? So I'm interested to know, do you find that it's faster for you versus using meat?
I don't know because I'm doing the new recipe, so it takes a little more
Yeah.
thought. But I think after I make them,
sure.
you know, more than once, they're not hard to make.
Good,
So
good. I'm good.
yeah, the product does cook a little faster than
Yeah.
hamburger per se.
Well,
We're
well, I'm
having
so glad
trying
that you're
something
enjoying it.
new, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of
I'm glad. And does your family feel like it's as good as the meat
Mhm.
version?
Yeah, my
Great.
son, you know, we trick him and don't tell him sometimes, just to see if he can tell the difference, and he can't. He's 15.
That's
So,
great. That's great. I have a 15-year-old, so I know that that is in fact high praise because, you know, they know everything. They're not afraid
right.
to tell you.
No,
So,
exactly.
well,
Yeah.
well,
So I
I'm
just wanna
glad.
say thank you. And it's fun cookbook, and I've been telling coworkers about it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Are you here in California or?
I'm on the East Coast. I'm
Oh,
in Connecticut. I live in
okay.
Connecticut now. I'm from New York.
Well, we need to have
And
you come out to the book mine and have some good wine.
I would love to. I love
Do a
Napa. I
cooking
love
demo. We
California.
got to get through COVID, then we'll have you out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much.
You're
I would
welcome.
love
Thank
that.
you. Have a good evening.
You too. So
Yes,
let
I
me check
second
this.
that for sure.
Okay, so that's still baking and it's the cheese that's taking a while. So I might have to, let's see, where are we for time? Okay, we have a little time. I might raise this.
Yeah, I had another
Okay.
question and a comment, if I might.
Yeah.
You could say that the cheese takes a little longer. What do you mean by a little longer? Because we've had this very experience and we get some really wonderful cheese from Miyoko. You probably know
Yeah.
about her.
Yes.
And she does
Yes,
these
yes, yes.
amazing cultured, yeah. But it still takes a, you know, we just never got it to melt satisfactorily yet. So how much longer would you say? Say like a
Well,
cheese sandwich or,
like so a grilled cheese sandwich. I have to tell
yeah.
you that when I use these products to make a grilled cheese sandwich, I find that it takes probably 2 to 3 times longer than animal-based cheeses. It just doesn't break down. Once it breaks down, it's fine, but it takes a long time. So for grilled cheese, what I do is very early on, I put a lid over it. I cook it in a pan that I can put a lid over it so the heat gets trapped. And then I'll, you know, finish it off by browning, you know, letting the bread get toasty once it's really started to melt. But like this, I guess I put it in, I wasn't really paying attention, probably 5 or 6 minutes ago, at least, maybe more. The cheese isn't melted. So that's kind of, so for a recipe like this, it doesn't matter as much. And I'll tell you why. The peppers take a little bit of time to cook. You want them to be nice and soft, right? So it doesn't matter quite so much. In the book, I suggested putting the cheese at a halfway point so it didn't scorch. And I think it's because the products that I was using, and it really, you know, so these books are written, like it just came out in this month. but really it was written more than a year ago, right? A year and a half ago. So, and in that short period of time, the products have changed. Like Miyoko didn't have as many products 2 years ago when I was writing this, right, as they do now. And when I was first writing it, although those cheeses that were available took a long time, once they got to a heat point, they just dried up. They just completely scorched up. So that's why I suggested putting it in halfway. Now, with what's on the market, I would just feel comfortable with saying, just doing what I did, put the cheese on right from the beginning. But it needs direct heat. Yeah. The Miyoko is a great product. Yeah.
Oh, isn't her great stuff? Oh my goodness. It's called a Rough House Cheddar, I think it is. It's to die for.
It's really good, I have to say.
But I also had a suggestion. Yeah.
No, go ahead, please.
No. Well, I was going to suggest that you send a copy of your cookbook to. I just heard about a soccer team in the United Kingdom called Forest. Have you heard about them? They're all vegan. They feed their players only vegan meals. But the players are not all converted to being vegan. So their jerseys are made out of bamboo, and next year they're going to make their jerseys out of coffee grinds. And it's a totally organic, ecological soccer team, and they're winning. And they're saying they have more energy after eating vegan food. But a lot of the players eat vegan food on site, but they're not vegans full time at home, and probably because they miss their meat. So they need your.
Or the thing is, it's different when you have like a team has a team chef or a team cook doing it for you. When you have to do it yourself, you're probably, unless you're committed, you're probably going to default, right, to what you know and what's easy. But that's why these products are actually pretty cool, because now they mostly cook up just like the real thing. So you don't have to feel like there's a learning curve. Like I found that when even these same companies, when they had their crumbles, right, that was their first product, the crumbles, they were frozen crumbles. I felt there was a little bit of learning curve with it. I mean, despite them saying that, oh yeah, you could use it right out of the bag, I didn't think so. I really didn't feel that. But with these, I do feel that.
Yeah.
Here's the other tip I want to give you guys. Sometimes you can't get, there's two tips. So Beyond Meat comes in a 16-ounce package for the raw meat product like I just used. And Impossible is a 12-ounce. However, for the volume, they're the same. It's because Beyond loses a lot of volume in cooking and Impossible doesn't. So you can use if it says a package of Impossible, you could use a package of Beyond. Like it's virtually the same end result. What I often do if I can't find the full pound or 12-ounce size is I buy the burgers. But again, defrost them completely, and then you can just use them just like, the same weight measure. And that can be versatile too. So you can have both things.
I have a really weird question.
Yeah.
Can you eat the meat raw? And would you even want to, because it's super gross?
So, I always think about that and I never follow through. Let's see what it says. They don't say anything, but then I guess, raw meat doesn't say anything either. I mean, look, I think I wouldn't say that you could. I would default to what they would say. What I will say is that it is a non-animal based product. So you probably have, in the right circumstances or comparable circumstances, lower pathogen counts because they're different pathogens, right? I probably wouldn't, it doesn't taste good. You'll see when you look at these products, there are little, globules of solid fat that are meant to mimic animal fat, and you need that. to like break down and melt and give it the mouthfeel and the texture. I wouldn't want to eat that. So that's a good question. I think, it'd be worth asking them. Maybe I'll ask them. I should tell you, I didn't deal with any of these companies, right? I didn't work with these companies whatsoever in writing this book. So those kinds of details I don't really have, but I could try to find out.
I'm just thinking of like things like beef tartare, where you eat it raw, which has never appealed to me, but certainly does to some people.
Yeah.
Whether you could replicate that with this or not.
Can I make
whether you would want to.
Can I make another comment? I had an Impossible Burger at the airport one time about a year and a half ago, and it was undercooked. It was medium rare or something, and it really grossed me out because it was so much like real meat, and it was bloody, and it didn't make me sick later or anything like that, but it just was really too undercooked, and it was like eating a medium rare hamburger or a rare hamburger, and I didn't like it.
It's funny you say that, because the other day my daughter was eating an Impossible Burger, and it was medium rare, and same thing. She said the same thing. It's like, I'm eating raw meat. I don't like it. Can you cook it some more? Yeah. So I think yes, I think that's true. When you make beef tartare, you're using very lean meat to do it. This is not lean. So I don't think it would be comparable. But it is a good question, and I'd really be interested if anybody has done it or has, I think that the beauty of this product is when it's caramelized. You really need it to have that caramelization. Because even these medium rare burgers, the outside is caramelized, the outside is seared. A tip that I will give everybody around using this product on the grill: you don't want to put it directly on a grill. This is true about some ground animal product meat too. You want to use the tin foil and start it off that way. And then when it solidifies, when it becomes firm, you could put it on the grill. But if you put it directly on the grill, it can't really hold up to that often. It sticks. So you want to get it to that firm stage and then put on the grill for those grill marks of that taste. That's something I will say. Whereas you could put a hamburger right on the grill. They're made for that. You could do it, but I find that they fall through and they fall apart. So you see, I'm still waiting for this cheese to melt. I've put it on broil to see if that makes a difference, but it smells good. As Emerald used to say, I wish there was smell-o-vision, because it smells good. I'm interested to know if anybody with us tonight cooked this recipe while we were cooking it here.
No.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I always say that we've become so accustomed to the entertainment of watching somebody cook, that's almost more compelling than doing it yourself at that moment. And now we can save it and do it later.
I have one more question. I noticed that the bottom of the pan looks like it has a crust on it.
Yes.
And
yes.
How difficult is it to clean?
So let me say two things. This has a crust, and I'm glad you said that, because this particular little thing, this little burner was too hot. It gets too hot too quickly, and that's why that happened. It actually is quite easy to clean. Once you soak it, it lifts pretty much right out. Much faster than burnt on meat crust does, where you kind of have to scrape it. If you soak it for a couple of hours, it'll come out really easily.
Good. My dishwasher will be happy to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. And nonstick pans or enameled cast iron are really good for this product too. It tends to stick less. But honestly, you'll see that in the book, there are few, if any, recipes that call for high heat almost everything is medium. And that is the reason, is because it's a product that's delicate on some level and it can scorch pretty easily. So you want to make sure that you're not, and this little burner seems to only be on high and that's it. Yeah, so this is interesting. I put this on broil to see if it would melt it, and it actually, I'm going to show this to you because I want you to what not to do. I put this on broil to try to make the cheese melt, and this is what I'm talking about. You see how it didn't melt, but it did just kind of burn up? Underneath it's melted. You don't want to do that. So you just want to leave it alone. I was trying to hurry it along to make it faster for everybody. You just want to continue on that gentle, like 350, 375, and let it take its time. These cheese products don't really lend themselves. They're tricky. One thing I might suggest, I'll show this to you if I have it. I don't know that I do. Yeah, I do. So here's the slices. I don't know if you can see that. And this is what I use for the grilled cheese. That does better. I might suggest even just cutting this up and using it if you don't want to wait as long. So as I said, don't do what I did. Don't try to hurry it along. Just wait and it will eventually melt. So that's basically the recipe. That's how you would go about it. I encourage you to try different things with it. I mean, maybe you want to use kidney beans instead of black beans. Maybe you want to use a favorite, taco sauce or seasoning instead of the spices that I used. You might want to not even do rice if you're trying to stay away from carbohydrates or starch. So it's a very forgiving and adaptable recipe. And I think you're going to find that most of the recipes in the book are.
Thank you, Ramin. Any last questions or comments for Ramin before? Thank you, Gary. Gary's clapping. Well, thank you. That was awesome. I feel like I just learned so much. I'm very appreciative of that. We will be putting this up on YouTube in a few days, and we'll share it with everybody so you can maybe play it while you're trying to make this recipe the next time. Get all those helpful tips.
What I'm going to do also is do these remaining ones and also scrape off the cheese of the ones that, I impatiently damaged. And I'm going to try it this way by cutting up, and I'll send you a picture because that might be a better sort of finishing shot for your video, just to show people really what it should look like. And honestly, how nicely this type of product does in fact melt if you are not impatient, like some people. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for staying up late with us. We really appreciate it. I wish everybody a lovely evening. And we do have books for sale at the store. Come on by, check them out, purchase one, and get cooking, everyone. Thank you so much, Ramin, and thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a wonderful night.
My pleasure. It was nice to meet all of you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.